Hello again, boys and girls. I'm glad that you have joined me today, and I wonder, does anybody remember what we were talking about last week? I'm sure you remember the story was about Ollie the dog, but I wonder, do you remember the details? Do you remember how I had been looking for a dog and I had gone to a place called the Dog's Trust, and there I had been introduced to Ollie. We had been spending some time together, and it hadn't gone very well because Ollie didn't, to begin with, want to go with me. But that's not all that happened whenever we were at the Dog's Trust, because one day I was asked to fill in a form. This was quite a lengthy form, and there would be a lot of questions in it, and I had to answer that form honestly. One of the questions was, would Ollie be left on his own? And if I was going to be leaving him on his own some days or every day, how many hours would he be left on his own? Another question was, what size of garden did I have? Was it going to be big enough for a dog of that size? And was it secure? Was it going to be a safe place, a place where Ollie could be kept and be safe? Only after I had filled in that form honestly would they then recommend me as a faithful owner. And I had to sign it that I was telling the truth. You know, Ollie was going to have a great life with me, but he didn't know it then. Just let me tell you a wee bit about Ollie's life now with me. It's a life that involves long walks. We just love going down to Loch Shore Park. So Ollie's life with me involves long and exciting walks. And he also gets to swim. Sometimes it's in the river, sometimes it's in the sea. And he has toys to play with. And sometimes we play games. He loves the balloon game. He has good food. But as a treat, he really likes a hard-boiled egg. And he has a comfortable bed to lie in. And it's not like a bed you'd buy in a place that sells dog food and dog beds and all kinds of dog leads and dog supplies. Ollie's bed is the sofa. And he really loves curling up on the sofa. So although all of those things are part of Ollie's life now, and he really has a good life, he didn't know all of that back then when he was still in the Dog's Trust. Imagine if he had kept turning his back on me. Imagine if he refused to walk down the path with me that last day I called to collect him. He would have missed out on all of these things that he now enjoys and takes for granted in his life with me. See, the problem is Ollie couldn't see all of that amazing life because Ollie couldn't see into the future, and neither can we. But there came a day when, instead of going for our short getting to know you walk at the Dog's Trust, we walked down to the car park, and I opened the boot of the car and Ollie jumped in. So what can we learn about this episode of Ollie's story? Well, I think one thing we can learn is that it would be really easy to make decisions, important decisions, if we could see into the future. But the truth is, boys and girls, that nobody can except God. And that's where faith comes in. But it's not blind faith, because God has given us something very precious called the Bible. God has put something into writing. And just as I filled in that form that day in the Dog's Trust, and just as I was being honest with the answers that I put there, And just as I made promises that I would have to keep, God has in his Bible given us his word. He has promised to do things for us. And God always keeps his word. You see, it was possible that I could break my word, that I might not keep it, like Ollie's first owner did. But it's not possible for God to not keep his word. God always keeps his promises. John chapter 17 and verse 17 says this: God's word is truth. When I filled in that form, I had to say that there were times I might leave Ollie, but it would only be for so many hours. How different that is from the promises that God has given us in the Bible, because God says he will never leave us or forsake us. He will never leave us on our own. We might feel lonely, but God will never leave us on our own. I had to fill that form in and promise that I would care for Ollie. And we have a God who has promised to do that for us. I had to promise that I would keep Ollie in a safe and secure place. And God has promised that too. We read in 1 Peter 1 and 5 that we are kept by the power of God through faith. Ollie didn't know all of the things that he now knows. Way back then, he didn't know all about the good times he would have on the beach and in the sea, all of the games, all of the toys and all of the treats. But he knows that now. And many of us who are older than you, we were afraid to trust Jesus too. And we thought that belonging to Jesus would make us miserable, would make us sad, our life would be dull, and it would be really boring. And in this world there is the devil who wants to make sure that he gets that message across to us. But nothing could be further from the truth. Because we have discovered now that as we walk with Jesus, that it is the best life. It is a real adventure with him. And we don't want you, boys and girls, to miss out on that. God keeps his promises. We can trust what he has written in his word. And the life that he offers you, and the life that I have, and the life that many others have and enjoy, is the best life, is the happiest life. And we listen to him, and we trust him, and we have made up our mind to follow Jesus. And Jesus has made promises to us that he will keep. In John chapter 10 and verse 9 he says, I am the door. If anyone enters through me, he will be saved. And that can be you today, by simply trusting in him. And I hope that you will listen to these things that we're saying, and that you will put your faith and trust in Jesus and have the happiest life that you can have here, and it will never end. Because when this life is over, it will just continue on in heaven where Jesus is. May the Lord bless these thoughts to us as we think about these things again this week. And tune in again next week, because we might see something more of Ollie taking part in the YouTube clip next week. Ollie's here beside me. He's been very good and very quiet. Do you want a treat? Give me a paw. Good boy. That's a good boy. Did I get a wee kiss? Did I get a wee kiss? Oh, that's a good boy. There you go. I think we can safely say he's happy. Until next time, Lord bless you. Bye-bye.